I'm sure we've all met or heard of overachievers. You know the ones I'm talking about. They have a clear sense of purpose, they are committed, and each accomplishment of theirs seems to outdo the previous one. I don't know how Amita is going to feel when I say this, but there is no doubt about the fact that she is certainly one of those people. Amita is nothing less than an icon. I met her back in 2014 when Amita was transitioning from 3 gold at the Indian Swimming Nationals to then Asian Junior #1 in squash, and now a D1 squash athlete studying computer science at Stanford University. She's currently interning at Google, and she has also been a TEDx speaker, and we are honored to have her here on Let's Talk About What We Don't Talk About. The truth about super achievers is that we often look up to them. They demonstrate to us that there exists such a thing as perfect people. People who can accomplish so much and have one too many talents. Virtually, they have no flaws. But that's why we have Amita with us today. As incredible as she is, we hope that our conversation today can show you all that behind the scenes might be a little different. That even an international athlete takes time to figure out exactly what she wants when it comes to food. So let's get into it and ask Amita a few questions. So as an athlete, how has your relationship with food been, and what has made it this way?
My relationship with food has definitely been a bit of a roller coaster and still very much a work in progress. Prior to college, food was very closely monitored, but I still used to sneak in an occasional Mountain Dew here or there. But it only happened so often. And back then, food for me was primarily a source of fuel with spots of happiness splattered across. And then college was a game changer. Suddenly I had access to soft serve machines and desserts 24/7, and I became infamous for breakfast, lunch, dinner having a soft serve before a meal, and then after every single meal having one, sometimes even 2 soft serves. And it was addictive but refreshing, and most importantly it made me happy, and that's why I kept it going for a prolonged period of time. But I think over the course of time as well, I was introduced to the concept of moderation. But what was moderation for me? Everyone seemed to have their own 2 cents on it. So over time, I looked and relooked at how I wanted moderation to be. And for me today, it's become conscious grocery shopping. So whenever I go out to eat, I still splurge. I definitely, if I see something in a like Levan bakery, I'm still gonna go and get it. Right? Like here in New York, our itineraries filled with bakeries and different food places to go to. But when we go back to home, the emphasis has been on trying to go slightly more towards clean, good eating. Of course, there are going to be anomalies here and there, exceptions. But I think so. For me, it's moved more towards from it being a source of fuel to an extreme or big source of happiness for me. And I think, long story short, that's what it's been.
I actually want to follow up with this social media topic. Do you think your distance from it to a certain extent, even while growing up, was sort of like a boon in a way? Because, because it idolizes a body type that is sometimes unrealistic. We're constantly comparing ourselves to these like Instagram models and all of that. So did you ever feel like that was a blessing in disguise, that you were a little away from it because you were an athlete and because you had so much on your plate already?
I think social media definitely played a huge role in my shift in my outlook towards food. Not having social media helped a lot, because when I look at social media now and I see women in bikini bodies and like the hot summer bikini body and stuff like that, not having access to those kinds of handles kind of helped me steer clear and like form my own image as to what I look at body positivity or body image to be today. I think initially the social media I consumed put a lot of emphasis on the concept of cheat meals and the concept that I had to achieve the cheat meal. And that was a concept that was very alien to me at the time. And on the other hand, I had one of my best friends sending me pictures of chocolate chip cookies every day on Instagram. So it was a tough balance to find. And I think I'm still making my way through what that is. But I think now I've learned to relook at my social media, who I follow, what I consume. So it started with unfollowing certain people that look at food as
something that you have to earn and something that you have to burn off later.
Like sort of like a demon. Right? And that or like calories are demons and that sort of thing. When I start following those kinds of people, I think it changed my life in terms of I started eating cleaner. I say question frequently what you consume, question whether listening to me or you is the right thing for you to do.
Yeah.
And fine-tune your social media and your news consumption.
Our discussion with Amita shows us that despite being a brilliant, successful and accomplished woman, Amita still sometimes finds it tough to clearly define and categorize her relationship with food. She struggles to make choices and to find a place of moderation where she is able to take the decisions which are right for her body. And at the end of the day, it's important for us to understand that it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to take time and explore your options to find out what works for you. Eating healthily and happily is a long process, and everyone, even Stanford going international athletes, don't have it all figured out. But most importantly, our discussion with Amita reminds us all that food is fuel and it's a source of happiness. Thank you.
Thank you, Kushi.